To create a new transition, we first need to define our start and end scenes. The start scene is actually the current layout defined here by activityalbumdetail.xml. For the end scene, we'll make a copy of this file and name it activityalbumdetailexpanded. So over here in the project pane, I'm going to right-click on activityalbumdetail and select copy. And then I can paste it right here in the layout folder. Right-click and select paste. And we want to name this one activityalbumdetail_expanded. Click OK. And here we just need to make a few small changes. Let's first make the album art image view here at the top shorter. We only want it to be 100 dp tall instead of 400 dp. So let's scroll down all the way to the bottom of this file, and here, after the relative layout, we'll paste in a new text view for the lyrics. Once again, you can copy this code from the teacher's notes if you need it. So let's save this file, and this is now our end state. Let's take a look at the design view. And oh, that's right, we've got to put our new text view in the relative layout. This tells us that the scroll view can host only one direct child. So that means that if we go back to our scroll view, it can only have one child element, which is the relative layout, which means we need to paste our text view up in the relative layout instead. So now if we save and switch to the design view, we can see we have a shorter view for the album, and we have a space down here, a text view for our lyrics. So let's move on to the Java code. Back in album detail activity, we want to add a new on-click listener for the track panel. Let's use the same convenient shortcut from Butterknife like we see here for on-album art click. So we'll add a new one. We'll start with @onClick, and we give it the ID of the button or the view that we want the click to happen on. In this case, it's called r.id.trackPanel. So now we give it an appropriate name. Let's call this public void on track panel clicked, and it gets a view as the parameter. So again, what's happening with Butterknife is it will inject the appropriate boilerplate code that we need to make this onClick method get called when track panel is clicked on. Instead of creating a new separate onClick listener that overrides the onClick method and then setting it to the appropriate view in onCreate, we can let Butterknife do all this magic work for us. Okay, in here we first need a view group called transition root. So view group, transition root. This will define the root of the view hierarchy where we want the transition to happen. Let's set it equal to detail container, which we've already injected using Butterknife up at the top of the class. If we take a peek at activityalbumdetail.xml and take a look at the text view, we see that the relative layout itself is what matches the ID detail container. This contains everything that needs to be animated. Back in our activity, we'll create a new scene named expanded scene. Let me import the class, and then we'll set this with a static method scene.getSceneForLayout. The first parameter is a view group, which we can pass in the one we just created, transition root. Next, we want the target layout that we want to transition to. I'm going to drop down on a new line. And here we can use the R class, r.layout.activityalbumdetailexpanded. We also need to pass in the context, and in this case, we can get it from the view that's passed into this method. So view.getContext. Finally, we say transition manager .go, and we pass in the expanded scene we just created. Alt+Enter to pull it in, and we're done. I'm going to hit the keyboard shortcut Control-R to run the app, and let's see how it looks. All right, so let's click into the detail view and click on the track down here, and we get a little transition. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. Now, the first thing you probably noticed is that the colors are changing up here for the title and track panels. Let's just set that aside for a few minutes. We'll talk about it just a little bit later. So of course, this transition isn't exactly what we want, but notice that the screen did not instantly change when jumping from one scene to another. Instead, the first scene gradually faded out, and the second one faded in. The framework already created some animators for us, just not exactly the ones we were hoping for. What's happening here is that the system picks a default transition when we don't pass in a specific one. To fix this, we can use another version of the Go method here that allows us to simply pass in a new transition. Let's use a new changeBounds transition, which takes care of updating the location and size of all the views contained in that transition root. So once again, I'll run this with Control R. And let's go in and take a look. Click on the track title and okay, we're doing pretty well. Let's take a short break and then we'll continue working on this in the next video.